I'm bored. Let's watch Jesterbelle. I believe this video is from earlier this week. I talked about it in the community tab. I posted it there so I wouldn't forget about it. And I was going to react to this yesterday, but I ran out of time during the day. I actually didn't even put up a video yesterday. So today we're going to be talking about this video from Jesterbelle. It was one that was actually requested. Several people were like, you have to watch it. It's titled, How the Me Too Movement Ruined Romance in Movies. Holy, the fact that you're so worried about the entertainment industry in regards to romance that you're willing to just smear an entire campaign that was intended to actually help women who were dealing with some really awful shit in the industry and outside of the industry, just the literal brain rot that you have to reach to make a video like this. I don't even I have no idea what this video is going to sound like.
Hello everyone, Jesterbelle is here, and today I wanted to circle back and talk about the sensation of romance disappearing in modern movies and where it might be coming from. And I want to just show you a very quick comparison of how the dynamics of Hollywood doing romance and promoting things of that nature in movies have changed by this quick poster comparison from the recent movie Tron Ares. You see the poster for the first Tron, back in the 80s, has the male lead standing front and center and the female character standing close next to him.
Okay.
Now, Tron Legacy, released in 2010, has the male character standing front and center and the female lead standing a bit suggestively and beside him. Then for Tron Ares, they did that exact same poster with Jared Leto in the movie with Jeff Bridges standing 3 feet aside from him. Gay. So,
what? I don't even, what the fuck? Is that our attempt at humor? Is that supposed to be, you're starting out a video about Me Too, which is a very serious thing, and the first thing you do in your video is make a really bad homophobic joke? All right, fam, let's go.
I saw that poster comparison going around online because they're all the exact same concept, just done differently, reflecting the time period they've been made in, to note just the lack of any sort of sensuality and romance in movies in general, and how our romantic tropes have gone away. And I've, of course, talked about this before, how so many traditional tropes have disappeared and they just don't do romance anymore. And
this is all subjective. I'm not even going to try and debunk that. It's just her opinion when it comes to this, so we're just going to move on. What's really funny to me, though, is we haven't really addressed the Me Too stuff. I don't even know if she's going to actually talk about Me Too specifically. If you don't know what the Me Too movement is, I feel like she should have at least given a little bit of backstory on that before she jumps into whatever this video is going to be, because the subjective shit, it doesn't work. I feel like her viewers should know what Me Too is, because if you don't address it, maybe she does, but if you don't address it, I would question whether or not she even knows what it is.
They've avoided things in certain movies, just actively avoided, times when a romantic story was pitched or there was supposed to be a kiss scene.
There's no evidence. There is no evidence anywhere that you're going to find that shows that Hollywood is avoiding romance. You're not going to find it anywhere. If there was something like that, some big story, some study, something like that that came out that showed that Hollywood was actively avoiding romance, it would be all over the place. It would be something that everyone is talking about. This is just speculation. It's absolute speculation.
Just avoiding that kind of thing altogether. And so I want to talk about the source of that and why that has happened in Hollywood and why it greatly matters. So I think it's pretty safe to say that it was the Me Too movement that ruined romance in Hollywood. If anything was perhaps leading into it beforehand, the Me Too movement is what completely changed it throughout all of Hollywood. And
this is extremely misleading, because there's no evidence being presented that Me Too ruined romance in Hollywood. There's no evidence of that. Correlation here is assumption. You're claiming causation without any proof. So already we're only almost 2 minutes of the video, and the entire foundation of what you're about to say, everything you're about to talk about in this video, is done without any proof whatsoever. No evidence, no provided studies, no sort of articles to back this up, nothing. This is all speculation. And it's crazy because it's speculation based on nothing. That's crazy to me. It's just absolutely batshit.
I'm going to tell you why in this video, the various reasons that the Me Too movement is what ruined romance in Hollywood. And they might be saying a lot of things behind the scenes, like to sort of deny this, saying that they're just giving the audience what they want.
Where is that at? Where have they said that? Has anybody even asked them? Has anybody gone to the studios and been like, hey, are you hiding the fact that Me Too has changed romance in movies? No, that's not what we're doing. I mean, that would be a pretty simple way to prove your point. If you're Jesterbelle here, is to pull up that article up or pull some sort of quote up or something, but you're not. It is crazy to me, guys. It is crazy to me that she makes these videos with literally no proof of anything she's saying. No proof whatsoever. There's none. I can guarantee you there's going to be nothing in this video that she can provide as evidence to back up anything she's saying. I can almost promise you that.
And that young people these days don't like romance. I think people are very much confused.
All right, so what's this article here? Hold on, let's go back a second.
Hollywood, and they might be saying a lot of things behind the scenes, like to sort of deny this, saying that they're just giving the audience what they want, and that young people these days don't like romance. I think people are very much confused about romance these days, and I don't think that Hollywood is helping. But
okay, so the article that she put up on the screen, I got it over here to look at, and it is from Psychology Today. What this article says, based on the study they did a survey of about 1,500 young people ages 10 to 24. This was conducted by UCLA's Center for Scholars and Storytellers. And what this study proves, or what they found, is that many in the group want more media to focus on friendships and platonic relationships rather than romance or sexual relationships. About 52% agree that they want more content that focuses on friendship. Around 44% felt that romantic themes in media are overused. Approximately 48% said that sexual content isn't needed for the plot of most TV shows and movies. I mean, looking at this article, this backs up the claim that this is what audiences want if you're going to use this study. So I don't know why she showed this on the screen to try and disprove that Hollywood is doing something that people don't want. Like, why would you put this up on the screen when it actually counters the argument that you're making that Hollywood is doing something based on what they believe isn't what the audiences want? That, like, Me Too forced them to do it, and there's been no studies on it. This study actually proves that this is what, at least in the study of 1,500 young people, proves that this is what the group that the study was being done on wants out of media. So it is aligning with the fact that Hollywood is doing less of this in their films. Let's run this back. I want to run this back and listen to exactly what she says here.
That the Me Too movement is what ruined romance in Hollywood, and they might be saying a lot of things behind the scenes, like to sort of deny this, saying that they're just giving the audience what they want, right, and that young people these days don't like romance. I think people are very much confused about romance.
So why on earth would you show the study on screen that proves that what they're saying is true? What the actual fuck? If you're disagreeing with them, why would you show a study that proves that what they're saying is the information they're receiving? Holy shit.
These days, and I don't think that Hollywood is helping.
Wow.
But I do not believe that Hollywood is making these decisions about romance in movies because of any type of external data. I think it's coming from the inside. Now,
and you're doing this based on nothing. You didn't provide counter for the article that you showed. You showed an article on your screen that backs up what the studios are telling you, apparently, or what they're telling the public, apparently, that backs up the made-up excuse that you've created in your head about what Hollywood is doing or why they're doing it. And then you're saying, oh, but no, they're doing it for another reason, when the information is literally in front of you, actual studies in front of you. And your counter is, I just don't believe it. You didn't even give another article and say, hey, this study refutes what happens in the article that I showed on screen. Holy shit. Holy shit.
Once again, let's get into it. So here is the first way that the Me Too movement seriously changed romance in the depiction of it in Hollywood. The rise of intimacy coordinators. For those who don't know, Hollywood did not have a healthy relationship with how they depicted romance in movies in the past either. And during the Me Too movement, it was finally time where a lot of actresses spoke up about the boundaries that were being crossed in, let's say, some of the more explicit scenes. But Hollywood's way of addressing this, in my opinion, was absurd. Their idea of how to address these boundary-crossing scenes was to hire a third party into it to help coordinate these scenes. From what I've heard behind the scenes, these new coordinators, this new role that you could be employed into in Hollywood has extended to even something as simple as just a kiss scene. This has created a whole nother hassle to depicting romance in movies, where oftentimes these productions don't want to have to hire this person. So instead of actually addressing the problem and coming up with a healthy way to approach romance in movies, it's part of the reasons why they've just abandoned doing romance altogether. But
okay, so let's think about this for a second. You have made a very, like, a big generalization here, right? The generalization is that all romance scenes are now actively avoiding intimacy. That's speculation. Also, intimacy coordinators did exist prior to Me Too. And yes, it's probably true they became more common because of all the stuff going on in the industry. But then you go on to say that people you've spoken to, insiders, have told you things with no proof whatsoever. I don't know about you guys, but I don't think that Jesterbelle has a bunch of Hollywood insiders on speed dial waiting to give her this kind of information. I don't believe it. I don't buy it. Matter of fact, we could play that game too. Here's my impression. I have a bunch of insiders that have told me the opposite. I have a bunch of insiders that have told me that Hollywood is just reacting to the needs and wants of the public and trying to be better towards the actors on set by making sure they're okay with intimacy in certain scenes. That's what I've heard. That's what my insiders told me. And I don't have to provide you any information whatsoever. I'm just going to say it and go, here's example number one of why Jesterbelle is wrong, because I'm just going to make up that someone told me something in the background and provide no proof of it whatsoever.
Of course, there are many other reasons why romance just straight up disappeared in movies after the Me Too movement. Hollywood and the people behind the scenes seem to have a very hard time grasping, like, what is healthy romance, and not being able to tell the difference between that and predatory behavior. And we see how that has created restrictions in even the most basic plot lines, like Little Mermaid is inherently a romantic plot. They were going to do that movie regardless of it being a romance or not, because they're also trying to capitalize on nostalgia bait. But we notice in the movie how lyrics from Kiss the Girl and other sorts of things like Poor Unfortunate Souls had to take away any sort of mention of, body language from the original movie, or Kiss the Girl had to make sure that it sounded very much consensual so there weren't any lines crossed.
I had to pause it there. The music is definitely going to get a copyright thing, so we're not going to listen to any of this music. We know for a fact that the lyrics were changed. We do know that. That is a fact that they did change some of the lyrics. But this idea that they changed the body language and they removed a bunch of the body language from the movie, there's no proof of that. That's a claim with no evidence. We have, so you're half right here. They did change the lyrics, but you don't know if they changed the lyrics because of Me Too. That is your jump here. That is the hurdle. That is the climb that we're doing, is that you have to somehow prove that they changed the lyrics of the song because of Me Too. You have to provide that evidence, but you have not. It is a claim with no evidence and an exaggeration about body language, where I looked it up. There doesn't seem to be any proof of that anywhere. So let's skip ahead of the music. I don't want to have to deal with any copyright stuff.
So it's like Hollywood has been petrified and paralyzed because the people behind the scenes making these rules don't seem to have a good understanding themselves about, what is the difference between a predatory relationship and a healthy romantic relationship, and the
weird thing about this is what you're saying here. Let's just unpack this. What she's saying, in at least in these two examples she's given so far, is that she believes no one in Hollywood making movies is qualified. I want you guys to understand that. She's making the claim here that everyone making movies now, some of the people that have been in the industry for 40, 50 years, even longer, that none of them understand how to do romance. I need you to unpack that for a second. Jesterbelle, this genius of filmmaking believes that Hollywood now, people again that have been doing this for a lifetime, somehow, because of Me Too, with no proof whatsoever, have forgotten how to make romance in movies.
Boundaries there. They don't understand that. There was nothing wrong with the original Little Mermaid. The Little Mermaid wanted Eric to give her a kiss.
First of all, nothing has to be wrong with it for them to change it. Nothing, like you are again creating some sort of standard that doesn't exist. If somebody wants to change something from one movie to the next because it's an adaptation or it's a new version, a reboot, whatever it is, if they want to change it, they can, as long as it's allowed by the people that own the IP. So if the people that own the IP are okay with this, then there should be no issue with that. It doesn't matter if there was anything wrong with it or not. That's not really the point. And you can't prove here any of the claims that you're making about this. You are showing us, yeah, they changed the lyrics. We know that. But then your suggestion about body language and the fact that no one in Hollywood knows how to do this is all speculation. It's all subjective. And a lot of it's based on nothing.
Yes, and the song was about encouraging him to do that and show his feelings. There was nothing predatory about it, but still, these changes had to be made. And it's because of the post-Me Too movement and those ideas.
Provide proof of this. Give us a example of something inside Hollywood, whether it be an article, a statement. Has any actor said this? Has any director said this? Maybe they have. It's quite possible, but you haven't done the heavy lifting. You haven't looked this up. You're just saying this without any proof whatsoever. And it's so frustrating because, again, you have people watching your content, and it is very irresponsible for you to do this kind of like headcanon bullshit with no proof whatsoever. It's extremely irresponsible.
Ideas, making a new hesitance and a fear around the idea of romance and not being able to tell the difference between healthy romance and, negative behavior. And so they've blurred that line so that now what most people would see as regular romantic healthy behavior is now seen as predatory. So they have to change that and put all of these restrictions and changes around that. And I think that is another reason why romance in general has disappeared from Hollywood, because now, in addition to intimacy coordinators, now the language and the behavior of romance and romantic couples also has to be more restricted and, tiptoed around and all of that, because there's people behind the scenes who have made it sound like it is predatory. And
this again is speculation. It is an overgeneralization. Okay. Yes, of course, guidelines exist and they change. Things change through time. But this all people behind the scenes interpretation, all this unverified, unprovable stuff that she keeps saying is ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. Again, I'm losing my mind here. I'm losing my mind because we have a content creator who is extremely irresponsibly going about this, suggesting that Me Too was bad on the movie industry with literally no proof whatsoever. No proof.
So who wants to deal with that and talk about taking all the fun out of romance and romantic dynamics and chemistry, because now you have to tiptoe over all these rules and what is going to offend someone and what is going to cross a line. And this leads into how men must be portrayed in movies and also the removal of romantic tropes, because as everyone from Hollywood is terrified after the Me Too movement and there's all these influences around it, there is also a terror of how men have to be portrayed, because there's this idea out there that men have this inherently predatory behavior, like that has been pushed by certain people, and that men taking the lead or being more primal in relationships, that is bad, men being forward. Like, I remember Henry Cavill saying that he doesn't mind chasing women, and he does it, and he wasn't saying it in a predatory way. He meant pursuing women, and he actually got zapped for saying that by people who were taking it literally, saying that Henry Cavill was expressing predatory behavior or something.
All right. This is a combination of being factually incorrect and misleading here. There's no evidence that Hollywood as an entity, studios, whatever, bans men from pursuing women. There's no proof of that. I read both of these articles that she's put on screen here. There's no statement anywhere that says that Hollywood is terrified and has banned men from pursuing women in media. I haven't seen that anywhere. And as far as being like zapped or whatever over romantic interest and how it's done online, we're not talking about an industry standard. We're talking about public response. We're talking about Twitter. We're talking about Reddit. We're talking about the public soapbox. Like, that has nothing to do with the way the movies are made behind the scenes and the kind of rules that are in place. They're two different things. You keep just randomly putting things up on the screen that you think somehow provide evidence for what you're talking about, but the two things don't connect. Just because Henry Cavill had some people on the internet that had an issue with him and things that he said doesn't mean that the industry has banned some sort of like pursuing of women in media by men. Those two things just don't walk hand in hand.
So all of that the kind of masculinity that you used to see in romances has to be taken away, because there's people in Hollywood now that see it all as predatory.
Has to by who? By who? Provide some evidence for your claims. You're saying has to, restricted, taken away, whatever these words are, you have not provided any proof of this. You're saying that Me Too took all these things away because you don't see them in every single movie or every single poster or every single TV show. But you've not provided any proof that there's some sort of Hollywood standard that is doing this. The only thing that you said so far in this video that is factual about the Hollywood side of it is the intimacy coordinators. That is true. But to the extent of what they're doing and things like that, somebody on set told you something, that's not evidence. That's not evidence. That's the only thing you said in this entire video so far that is factual and has anything to do with the arguments that you're making. It's the only one.
And that kind of behavior from men as wrong. You cannot have the man pursuing the woman or taking the lead, or even, as I saw someone point out online, you can't even have men initiate.
Someone point out online. You can't be serious. You cannot be serious with this. You cannot be serious. Someone on the internet said something. Holy shit. All right, let's go.
And kisses anymore. Yeah, I got someone writing to me once who allegedly worked in Hollywood who said that now when you do a kiss scene, it like you have to write around it to make sure that it's the woman who initiates the kiss. And after
y'all, somebody who allegedly worked in Hollywood somehow has access to all of the detailed stuff that goes on in the industry behind the scenes. It's somehow a secret. Why would any of this be a secret? Think about this for a second. Why would any of these standards be secrets? If the Me Too movement forced this intimacy coordination situation, why would all of the guidelines around that be so secret that she can't even provide it in front of? Like, if these things existed, she could pull up a article or something that shows what these guidelines are, and then she could complain about it. But here's what she's saying. She's saying that Me Too was so powerful that they have secret guidelines that are happening that we don't even know about. So now there's secret guidelines going on behind the scenes because of the very public and outwardly expressive Me Too movement that changed Hollywood forever, but those changes are all completely absent from any sort of like public speculation. We know about all of this stuff that happened with Me Too, but we can't be aware of any sort of guidelines behind the scenes. I got news for you. Any sort of guidelines like this would be something that would be available to the public. We would know about these things. This trust me bro stuff, anecdotal, I think, speculation, some person told me, none of this means anything. It doesn't mean anything. It's just completely misleading. There is no industry-wide rule enforcing who initiates kisses. This is anecdotal speculation based on somebody on the internet. That's crazy.
I saw that. I couldn't unsee it. That's the way movies are now. You can't have the man initiate a kiss or passionately pursue a woman in a masculine kind of way. You can't have that anymore because all of that has been deemed predatory from men again. And I would say skewed as to say that it's inherently a predatory thing. But the problem with that is I would say, having a man passionately pursue a woman, that's what a lot of women want to see in these movies. But you've taken away so many tropes tropes for romance and so many different kinds of male figures that you can portray with that.
I mean, should I don't even want to do this. Should I go through and like find a bunch of videos where men initiate kisses in Hollywood and be like, see, you're wrong. You're wrong. I know they exist, but I feel like I don't even have to because she hasn't really provided any real evidence so far. So I feel like I don't even have to provide counter evidence because she's not giving us anything. It's a waste of my time.
Can't have the man who is passionately pursuing the woman. You can't have the man initiate the kiss. Like in other cases, you can't have the bad boy. Like that's been eliminated too. You know, you can't have the bad boy with a heart of gold who's a bit rebellious. We've seen that removed because that was deemed as a toxic trope. That's not what women want to see today. So they said, even though I would say, and I'll get into this at the end.
We're not even going to get into the fact that the whole Johnny Storm thing, she blew it out of proportion. She sort of walked it back and then she doubled down on it again because she didn't want to say that she was wrong about it. Joseph Quinn was definitely a ladies' man, just wasn't a womanizer. She doesn't seem to understand the difference between ladies' man and womanizer. I thought by now she would have figured it out, but maybe she's just pretending like she doesn't know so she can continue to push this garbage.
That is not true. But you've got all of these portrayals of men that can't be portrayed anymore in movies. And you've got all these portrayals of men in romances that can no longer be portrayed because they have been deemed predatory.
This is, again, misleading and exaggerating. These are claims without any evidence whatsoever. There's no supporting evidence in the industry that these types of characters have been eliminated. There's no proof of it. When she says this, I actually stop the video. I go look it up to see if there's any proof of it. There is none. The headline she's using don't provide any context. They don't even correlate to the stuff she's talking about. God, it's so frustrating.
And so all of that has been eliminated so that there are so many kinds of romantic relationships that we can't even see anymore. Now, the problem here is like with masculinity removed in movies, that also removes a lot of the appeal of...
You do realize that this little like spiral we've done with her, where we are right now, where we've landed on this, all of this is just is layers of lies. It's like layers of lies. We're making a lies cake. So we're already like four tiers of a cake of lies because there's nothing to any of this. So we're stacking this cake up and we're already so deep into it that now we've reached a point where her claims are based on previous claims that have no evidence. So it's like claim after claim after claim with no evidence. And we're still using these previous claims to prove things she's saying now without any substantial evidence.
Traditional romances that we used to see in movies. There's no longer any sort of masculine figure that you can see as the heartthrob. Or
the Pedro Pascal hate is crazy, fam. It's crazy. It's like you need therapy for this. I just want to put that out there.
Anything like that, because all of that has been removed. Romance also means that there might be a bit of vulnerability, maybe on both characters' parts at times, but also that has been removed because it inherently goes against what they're trying to push. Masculine men in romances are gone and women cannot be vulnerable, certainly not. They don't want to have this. They subdue male characters all the time, which is not something that women actually like to see, and they can't allow women
You don't speak for all women. Women are not monolithic. I hate when people get on here, and it happens a lot with these kinds of channels, where they seem to think they speak for everybody. They seem to think that their taste, what they love, things that they find interesting, that they speak for every single person who is like them. It's just not true.
Be vulnerable at any time, which might be required when you're having a romantic relationship between two people. That's all seen as toxic, so that has had to be removed. And that is why, or one of the big reasons why we've seen romance disappear from movies so much. That also takes away a lot of romantic tropes. Like, you used to typically have a love interest in every single movie. You used to typically have a romantic subplot in every single movie, but now that in and of itself, I guarantee, is seen as misogyny and sexism. How dare...
Again, there is no proof to her claims that any of this stuff has been eliminated due to some sort of mandate by the studios. So if it's like, and let me put this together for anybody out there who thinks that I'm misreading what she's saying here. She's talking about Hollywood in general. She's not specified one studio, one director, one writer, one producer. She's talking about Hollywood in general. So if she's saying these things are changed in Hollywood, in general, she's saying it's some sort of mandate because of Me Too. There's literally no proof of this. There's zero proof of this. We are like, what, 10 minutes into her, over 10 minutes into her video. There's no proof of this. There's none.
You put the female character in the role of love interest too much, or how dare you give the female character a male love interest, because women liking men is seen as making her weaker. Women aren't supposed to like men. That's not you being independent. That's not you being the perfect woman. So all of that has to be removed. So we don't get romance or even most basic romantic tropes anymore. But the interesting thing about all of this is what we're seeing the disappearance of is traditional romance after the Me Too movement, because they've completely skewed and blurred the very idea of healthy romance. They don't have any idea of what healthy romance
Who is they? Who is they in this conversation? Like, who are we talking about here? We haven't really specified who they is. Is it the studios? Is it some sort of like behind the scenes organization running everything? I don't know who they is.
Looks like they think that men being men is a toxic thing, and they don't want women to be any other trope other than the girl boss trope. They don't want women to be—
This is all subjective stuff. That's why I'm not stopping it every 5 seconds, but it's all subjective and it's based on a false reality. What happens here is her subjective opinion is based on a lot of things that she thinks is happening that isn't actually happening the way she perceives it happening. If that makes any sense. Like, there could be individual examples of the stuff she's talking about, but she's not being specific. She's being very vague. She's generalizing and broad brushing it.
Be vulnerable in any way, even if they're not actually being vulnerable. If any sort of perception, like being in love, they see as vulnerability, so they can't do that. But the interesting thing about all of this is, as we're seeing less and less romances from Hollywood, we're still seeing toxic romances, and that's what's really odd to me.
Okay, so if you believe that Me Too is responsible for some sort of mandate in Hollywood removing traditional romance, in your opinion, but then you're saying that toxic love stories still exist in media, then Me Too could not be the catalyst for changes in media for any of this if it did not actually change the toxic landscape. Because that's what Me Too was about. It was about the toxicity of this kind of stuff happening behind the scenes in Hollywood. That's what it was about. So you have effectively, at this point, we're 12 minutes into your video, you have effectively just compromised your position, and every single thing you've said prior to this, all of it, I mean 100% of it, is absolutely wrong. It is absolutely wrong. In order for your theory to be true, the necessary condition in your theory is that Me Too has mandated these changes in Hollywood, that somehow these changes have come down from a higher person and that those changes are across the board. Once you have admitted that they're allowing toxic relationships to exist in media, in spite of what Me Too has done to traditional romance, then the necessary condition of Me Too being the cause of this is gone. Congratulations, you have just destroyed your own argument. Your argument is null and void.
Because, like, for all of the removal of traditional enjoyable romances that everyone could like, there's still things like 365 Days out there, and Margot Robbie's upcoming Wuthering Heights, and all of these, fetishized romances. Not really romances, but, these shows and movies unironically fetishizing abuse. And we even see an odd amount of that. Like, I've talked about how sensuality has very much been removed from marketing. But the odd thing is like Netflix recently was doing this show on Ed Gein, one of the most prolific serial killers of all time, but they hired a very attractive man to play him, and apparently they added this thing in the show where the women who he meets are fawning over him, and that is not reality what happened with this guy. But apparently, I guess why they did it is because true crime shows are mostly watched by women, so they wanted to lean into that and lean into that appeal. So it's bizarre to me that as we're moving away from traditional romance and healthy romance,
So wait a minute. So there are TV shows and movies that allow more of this like old school sexuality and romance to happen, but because they're weird true crime stories or whatever, you dismiss that. You're like, oh, Me Too affected all of these things, but it didn't affect any of this entire genre, one of the biggest genres on TV right now, which is true crime. It didn't affect that. All of that is still allowed to be as shocking and sexual as it wants, whatever romance they want to do. But for some reason, just these specific things were affected by Me Too. This is brain rot. It's more brain rot from Jesterbelle.
Still indulging in like these weird abusive and manipulative fetish fantasies for women to watch, so that we get rid of all the traditional stuff because we say it's toxic and it's wrong, but then we actually indulge in the actual obvious toxic stuff. It's so messed up.
And it disproves your argument. Your argument is null, void, zero, doesn't mean anything now. You've disproved your argument.
And I will tell you why I believe that they've been able to get away with this. Oftentimes, they try to justify these very perverse shows and movies made for women by saying, well, this is just women exploring themselves. This is just them exploring their sexuality by watching these perverse shows and movies. And that's how they try to work around it and say that this is actually...
It's really weird to me that you think you can just classify things as perverted. But then when they actually try to change the industry for the better, to remove toxicity and remove perversion from these things, according to what you say, the mandate that exists, when they try to do that, you attack them for it. Earlier in this video, you were like, oh, they changed the lyrics to a song because it didn't actually represent what consent looks like. But then you're mad at them for providing media and content where consent doesn't always exist because that's toxic to you.
Actually empowering for women, and it's okay for them to watch and enjoy and indulge in this stuff. Now, I think the actual reason it's happening is because the people behind the scenes, as they're trying to preach about romance and, you know, changing men in masculinity and their roles and the toxicity and predatory nature of men, I don't think they have any actual idea of what healthy romance looks like. I think that they're...
This is all opinion. This is all opinion. Like, this doesn't mean anything. We're going to listen to her say it, but this means zero, means nothing.
Completely warped in the head and skewed.
What I mean by that is it doesn't prove her argument about Me Too, is what I mean by that. Like, she can have her opinion, that's fine, but this isn't helping her argument.
And that's how you get, or at least partially how you get, the removal of traditional romance and romantic tropes in movies, but this perverse stuff still exists. They have absolutely no idea about what real healthy romance looks like, and they just go off and indulge in all of this nasty stuff and still pretend like they are the enlightened ones, which is to say that these Hollywood types should not be the ones preaching about what healthy romances look like in media. And
so my question is, this is just thinking about this here. If they don't understand how to do romance, then what difference does it make if the Me Too mandate existed? Right? What difference would it make if Me Too came in with some sort of mandate to affect like consent in films if they don't understand how to do romance in general? What difference would that make at all in this scenario? It wouldn't make any difference, because if they're incapable of understanding what romance is now, they would have been incapable of understanding romance before, because it's the same people working in the industry. God, she's stupid.
If romance is healthy or not, or what positive masculinity looks like or not, if at all. Now, the argument here is going to be that, no, this is the audience. Weren't there studies that said that young people don't want to...
Yes, the one that you showed at the very beginning that was done on 1,500 young adult. Well, actually, it was like 10 to 24. So it was like kids and then teenagers and young adults.
See romance in movies anymore. I think that those studies were completely skewed, because as I perceive everyone else, I don't think that the audience has actually changed.
Based on what? What is your basis that the study is skewed? Can you provide some sort of evidence that the study was skewed? You can't just say that. You can't be like, oh, the study was done, but I think the study was wrong. Why? Why was the study skewed? Are you going to explain why you think it was skewed? I'm curious.
Much as Hollywood would like you to believe, because it's always been a thing in media that the romantic subplot tends to sell. You might have a small group of people who get annoyed with it, but the reason why it's done so much in the past is because it consistently sold. And now we're seeing movies sell less and less with the removal of romantic tropes, actually.
There's what's correlation, causation? This doesn't, it's, that doesn't mean anything. You have no proof of that. You have no proof of that. What she's saying doesn't make any sense.
And obviously that isn't the only reason, but it is part of one of the many, many things, the many elements that are traditional and relatable that Hollywood would consistently put in their movies that has been removed. And we're seeing movies do worse and worse. And I think that that is a small part of the reason.
Think is doing heavy lifting because there's a lot of room in your head. Think is doing heavy lifting on that one.
They're not allowing the traditional tropes that sell to people to actually be in those movies. So what I'm saying here is it's not us, it's them. It's the people behind the scenes in Hollywood that have such a skewed idea of romance and what romance should be, if it's even good at all, that put out all this garbage for people where good romance is removed that everyone can enjoy and the perverse stuff remains. And I think that by and large, people are actually very turned off by it.
You have no proof of that. You have zero proof of that. Like, we've gone through this whole video and she's made a bunch of claims and provided zero evidence of any of these claims. Every single article that she splashed on screen was about something that did not corroborate anything she was saying. The Henry Cavill story didn't have anything to do with it, really. The psychology article actually disproved what she was saying. Yeah. Let's continue.
And there actually needs to be a return to traditional romance in movies because it will sell movies again. You can use movies to present positive ideas of romance rather than confuse people and make people feel.
By the way, the examples you gave of like romance in some of the, I guess that we'll use Little Mermaid or whatever, there was nothing not positive about that. There's nothing like it wasn't like they were completely taking romance out of it. They just slightly changed the story. I mean, ever so slightly.
Anxious about it or walking on eggshells or just feel like it shouldn't even be pursued at all as these movies promote. But all of this would require things like bringing masculinity back into movies and allowing to admit that it's okay for people to be vulnerable in relationships at times and all of that. And all of that goes against the fundamental framework that the Me Too movement changed, as you see in Hollywood, where they've decided that men and women cannot be in those roles anymore.
That's just not, you are, again, we're going to stop here because we're towards the end of the video and I'm over it. She has not provided any proof of any of the claims that she's made in this video. I want you to understand that. Zero. None whatsoever. Matter of fact, twice in this video, she provided evidence that counter what she's saying. The study number one counters what she was saying. And when she admitted that they're still making romance that is not blocked by some mandate in Hollywood, she completely shut down the argument that she had for like the majority of this video. So she disproved her own beliefs in this video. This is crazy to me. This is like, I hate this kind of content on YouTube. I hate it. And I hate it because it's if she actually provided some sort of reliable evidence to her claims and did a little bit of homework, did something that sort of gave us a little meat to chew on here, there might have been something to talk about. But to suggest that Me Too, a movement that was largely positive for many of the women involved in the industry that had to deal with this stuff, largely positive, to blame that and say that this is the reason why we're not getting like non-consensual stuff in some films is crazy to me. It's just fucking crazy.